Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the College Muslim. My name is Talha Rafiq, and along with my close friend and co-host Badruddin Muhammad, we host this podcast, the College Muslim. Our goal is to highlight and show the experience high school and college students go through while growing up Muslim in a primarily non-Muslim society. We are not here to give you Islamic advice or tell you how to live your life as Muslims. Instead, we're here to share our story and through discussion show how we navigated many of the struggles and obstacles we faced in our lives in the hopes that it benefits you all. Both Badruddin and I are currently students at USC studying quantitative biology, and between the both of us, we have attended both private and public schools, giving us a wide range of experiences. We also hope to showcase many other experiences by bringing on guests on various episodes.
Lastly, we are not sheikhs, muftis, or scholars, and while we do have a rudimentary Islamic education and are continuously learning about Islam, everything we say here is purely from our experiences and should not be listened to with the pretense that we are Islamic scholars. However, with that said, we do take responsibility for what we say, and if any of y'all have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us at any of our social media platforms. So with that said, let's begin today's episode, and inshallah, God willing, we, along with you, will continue to grow as Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another episode of the College Muslim. Bum bum bum. Okay. Actually, the bum 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 fits perfectly well because today we're going to be talking about how and why we were able to quit music, or actually should I say why and then how we were able to quit music. So we're not, first of all, to set the precedent, we're not here today to talk about whether music is haram or if it's halal, or which kind of music is haram, which kind of music isn't haram, is nasheeds halal, haram. We're not here to talk about anything of that sort, okay? We're going to go with this mindset. Music is haram, nasheeds are okay, and then, like poetry is perfectly fine, as long as it's appropriate, of course, right? So that's what we're going in with. So we're not here to debate whether or not music is haram or halal. And by music, most of the music that exists today, that's what we're referencing to. So hopefully that won't cause any haters to come at us about whether music is haram or halal, but I just want to set that out there. So we're going to be discussing two things. First of all, kind of like the pros and why we kind of quit, other than, being a commandment from Allah kind of thing, talking really about like the benefits that have come from it and what we've realized for ourselves as like young people, especially in college, and the conduit that music is and how it affects us. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is exactly how we got there, because music used to be a big part of my life. I'm sure it was a part of Saeed's life too, since we both quit it. And music's a big part of everyone's life nowadays, right? It exists everywhere. It's kind of like whether you're on social media, you see people with AirPods in now, so it's very, very convenient to listen to music. So we'll talk about how we went about quitting it, especially when it was such a big like habit of our lives. So with that, Saeed and I have quit music, and I haven't listened to music like intentionally, if I walk into a coffee shop, sure, like it's in the background. Social media, it's in the background sometimes. But intentionally, I haven't listened to music in almost a year and about 2-3 months now, like around that marker. Not exactly sure, but around a year for sure. And then Saeed has been 6 months, right? 6-7 months.
Yeah, about 6 months since I stopped intentionally listening to it on my own or something like that, along the sorts.
So it's been a minute, but like in the grand scheme of life, we barely started. But even within this like short time span, there's been a lot of changes that have come from it. So that's what we're here to discuss today. So with that, I guess we can tackle the first thing, which is kind of like some of the pros, some of the benefits, like the outright stuff that have come out of kind of abandoning music. You want to start, or should I start?
So whatever you want. I think because you've been going on for a long time now, you can start us off because you've had like the longer term effect than me.
Yeah. So there's a lot, honestly. Like I think we're gonna like end up like it's all connected. So none of these things is like singular on its own, but there's quite a bit that happens. So like this is like, let's say you've managed to quit it, and let's say you're not currently like relapsing, right? This is a good time, right? Because there are moments that sometimes, some people are very connected to music, so they might relapse. It's just like a drug, in my opinion, right? So Personally, this was a time like within like 2-3 months of quitting, I really got in a groove of not listening to music. It was like, no music whatsoever. At that time, I was listening to nasheeds, so I still listen to nasheeds without musical instruments, so it was vocals only. Um, I think this happened like right after Ramadan last year. So like 1 year ago, right after Ramadan. During Ramadan, it was nasheeds, and I did listen to nasheeds with music, but like my like musical instruments. But then right after the Ramadan, I stopped listening to nasheeds with musical instruments. So yeah. So there's a couple of things. The first thing I'm gonna start with is the emotional aspect of music, because I think this is like the biggest thing for young people, because we're very very like emotional. Like we get mad at stuff that like doesn't need to get mad at. We have a lot of like petty arguments. We do a lot of navigating. Like emotions are at a high when you're in between the ages of like 13 to like 20, and that's been proven true to like within families. Like everyone's like the difficult ages are when they're in high school, when they're 16, 17. Everyone's kind of like hormonal and like super emotional. Like it's a natural thing to be in, and music affects that without a doubt. So the first thing I noticed was my highs weren't as high and my lows weren't as low. So it was like, for example, something bad happened, or I was like, being extra dramatic and I'm sad, right? Or something like that. Sometimes I would turn to music and it would enhance that feeling, right? So then you end up, in a way, even if you're trying to counteract that feeling, like you're like, this music makes me feel good because I feel bad, it causes your emotions, like it caused me and my emotions to like rise to a certain degree. Right, it was almost like a drug. Like I wanted it to like induce induce something about my emotions, and when I quit music, first thing I realized is my coping strategies completely changed. Right, so like say something bad, like say like I don't know, like what's something that's really bad that happened. I lost something one that I didn't really want to lose. Right, and I was very very like emotional about that a couple times, and whenever that like happened in the past, I would have turned to music without a doubt. I would have like plugged in my earbuds. I would have maybe like hit the gym, gone for a run, and let those like the sounds of the like music carry me, right? Almost like I wanted to live in the essence of the music. But what ended up happening is after losing this person, like I ended up thinking a lot more and reflecting upon what happened and like what the situation was, and it didn't allow me like drown into my emotions. So that was probably the biggest defining thing that started changing. Was music was no longer a coping tool. Music was more so like I started to view it as this thing is a dangerous drug that I could go into. Now it's not as clearly dangerous as like cigarettes or like drinking, which are stuff people go into when also they lose someone, right? They go into that stuff. But to me, that's how I started to view it, because that's how I felt. And when you replace it with like things like nasheeds, all of a sudden you don't listen to it as much naturally either. And this goes into the next point that we're going to talk about like afterwards, about like how we quit it. Is because like when I started listening to nasheeds, I would listen to like not as much as it of it as music, because music was more addictive. Nasheeds are like, okay, I'm in the mood for it right now, I'm not in the mood for it right now. And then over time, even like the number of nasheeds I listened to went down, and I started listening to more Quran, right? So then almost like my tolerance level came low. So we'll talk about that afterwards, like that whole tolerance concept, etc. But
Yeah.
I think the emotions thing were huge for me. Like that was massive.
Yeah, I was gonna jump on one of your points you said about like when you don't listen to music when you're feeling a particular emotion, you kind of are forced to think about it more in a logical sense than an emotional sense. Because I remember, like, same thing with me, if something bad would happen or if I was sad or something, I'd automatically try to listen to sad music, and I think I'd feel better. But it would just make me more emotional. Like, rather than thinking about it in a logical sense, it would just basically exacerbate everything that's happening in my life and make me, I don't know, see things more deep than they actually were. But now, when something bad does happen or something sad, when you don't turn to music, you're kind of forced to deal with your thoughts. So first off, you get over with whatever's making you sad faster, and then if something was stupid or something that you shouldn't have gotten sad over, you're more likely to get over it faster because you're thinking about it in a logical sense. And that's what I kind of learned, because whenever I would get very sad, I would just go like listen to like sad music or something like that and just kind of lose maybe like a couple of hours in my day, just like trying to do that, because it's like how you said, it's like kind of like a drug because it makes you feel better. But now that you're not really emotional, you kind of try to deal with it in other ways. So like how you said, your coping mechanism changes, and I feel like it's a much healthier way. You become more of like a happier person, in my opinion, or at least personally, that's how it was with me. I felt like I was, like you said, the lows weren't as low, but for me personally, I don't know if I would say the highs weren't as high. I'd say initially whenever I did, I could definitely say that, like when you're in the car with the guys or something like that. I know like in high school, like music would just always be something like the number one priority when you're in the car with the guys, and that makes like the moment seem like it's better. But initially when you cut it out, you'll kind of reminisce over moments like that. But I feel like over time you start to replace it more and enjoy more of the moments rather than the feelings. Like rather than the emotions of the moment through the music is like the emotion of the moments of being able to spend time with your friends and being thankful of it and appreciative for it.
Yeah, I guess I should reframe like high being as high. Like that's not to mean like I feel much better now than I did before, and I considered like my high higher, but like kind of like I don't know, like think of those like thermometers. You know how like the mercury in the thermometer goes like all the way up and all the way down. Like if you were to go all the way down, and there's not like all the mercury is in the center, right? That I would consider like a dangerous low, right? And if you go all the way up and you're
Yeah.
about to blow the gasket kind of thing, that's a dangerous high, right? But the thing is, I still have highs and lows. They're just within the thermometer now, and they're not either like too low or they're not like at the very, very top, right? So it's almost like
Yeah.
I feel better throughout my day versus like, for example, the guys at the car, right? Had plenty of those moments in high school. Like that's what happens when you play sports, right? You go into your football game, etc. Then all you're blasting is music, right? Like you got your emotions and energy up, but like if you have two or three of those things throughout the day, the rest of the time is like you kind of miss that feeling, right? That's why I think parties are so addictive too, is because you just want to go back to that like high feeling, right? Whereas now it's a bit more like I feel consistent like throughout my day. I'm like I don't have like a pull of energy for like something that's like an addictive substance. Um, so it's not like my highs weren't
Yeah,
as high. It's almost like my healthy high just felt a lot better and more sustained. If you get
yeah.
that.
And then like I think the biggest thing that affected me when I quit music was like whenever I would go to the gym and every time I'd work out, play basketball, literally anything that was like physical activities, I would always be listening to music, especially with like weightlifting. I feel like it would, I'm not gonna say made me stronger, but it like elevate your emotions, which would allow you to get like a adrenaline rush or something. Especially because I used to like deadlift a lot in high school, but now that I don't, I feel like even with like physical activities, I'm much more consistent because I don't have to depend or rely on music to kind of give me that motivation or push. You kind of bring it from within, and then it's something that's more stable, like you said, and it's not like high or low. Like I remember, like before I'd do like a big lift, I'd have to put on some crazy song or something like that to get me amped up. But now, like you can kind of bring that from within, or I don't know. It kind of changes the whole aspect of, for me at least, how it was for physical activities in sports and everything like that.
Don't you just love it when you have a thought and you blank out on it? I had a great, great thought and I don't remember it.
You know what's really good though? I'm not saying I don't listen to anything at all now in the gym. I still definitely do listen in the sheets. Not always, but when I do, that's when I like need some motivation. I listen to some like I forgot what the guy's name is. The guy that makes all the nasheeds, like is it Abu Ali? There's like, you know, like those war like jihad like nasheeds that like get you amped up. Yeah, those ones.
But the thing is, like, those are the like they don't like. For example, I was gonna say like, that like old song by like what was the guy's name? The XXX Tentacion. What was his thing?
Yeah.
And his song used to be like maybe I don't understand it, like these changes, something like that, right? You remember that song? These changes,
Yeah.
I can't handle it,
Yeah.
right? Like I was specifically gonna reference that song because, like, whenever I was sad, I would play that, right? Like that was the thing. It's like these, I would resonate with the song, being like, "This is something I don't like. Why is this happening? I don't understand it." Like, there's other people who like
Mm.
this kind of like negative like feeling, right? And sometimes like those negative songs, like obviously there's other inappropriate stuff, but like for the first part, that was that. The difference between that and nasheeds, kind of like you're saying with the nasheeds with the gym, for example, the nasheeds call to action a most of the nasheeds, like the nasheeds that you should are allowed, at least from like the sheikhs who I've like follow, like even like who's that sheikh who makes nasheeds, the biggest one out there.
Oh, yeah, Lafasi, Lafasi.
Make
Yeah,
nasheeds. So like
Inshallah Lafasi.
yeah, all the nasheeds call to something of a higher power, and specifically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They call to an action. They don't call to laziness. They don't call to like
Yeah,
sadness. They don't call to greed. They don't call to like seducing others, right? Every single one.
yeah,
Has,
like the
yeah, the war ones, like you're about to say, right?
No, no, I was gonna say like the Bruno Mars song, like when we were growing up, like today I don't feel like doing anything. The Lazy song is literally talking the whole song about like today I don't want to do anything. I just want to be lazy and everything like that. And so like a lot of these songs are implying like either laziness or explicitness or something that we shouldn't be doing. And I think another thing is like when we talked about the language in terms of replacing your language with something more positive when we talked about that podcast. I feel like when this applies to music as well. When you don't have something that controls your emotion, you become your emotion isn't controlled by external factors as easily. Like you control your emotions more. So like let's say, what's up?
You control your emotions more, and your emotions stop controlling you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so regardless in any situation, you kind of become more thoughtful and appreciative of the things that you have, because I feel like again, music kind of distracts you from the emotions that you are feeling. They either distract you from it if you're sad and you don't deal with what the problem is, or if you're happy, you won't really appreciate the happiness or the moment as much because you're kind of living in the moment. I feel like for me personally, it was like now when I'm happy or like I'm going through a moment that I'm really enjoying, I feel like I'm more likely to say Alhamdulillah than before. I don't know if that's if because I've changed over time a little more, or if that's because of music, but I feel like music definitely did distract me a lot from the moment or from whatever I was experiencing, because it kind of does give you that high, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of like it taps back in, like that's also the second like benefit that kind of came from getting great at music, was like it changes your demeanor, it changes your language, it changes what you strive for, right? So like I guess that's the second thing we can tap onto. Like I'm not sure if this happened for you, but it definitely happened for me, and it actually did happen for you. Just explain it kind of. Um, when you cut out that music, like, and it's twofold, right? First is like a lot of music has like inappropriate, uh like it talks about something that's not allowed in Islam, right? Whether it be drinking, like laziness, greed, being provocative, etc. So like, let's just say like someone's like, and it talks about those things, and by cutting it out, you basically reduce those amount of thoughts, right? And you also reduce that amount of language. But let's just say someone says like, oh, what if I don't listen to music of that sort, right? Like, what if it's like still music but of the other sort? Um, then it comes down like to me, like for me personally, like I asked myself that question too. Like, what if I just cut out all this stuff? First of all, when I did, there's like nothing left. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is it's almost like you're distraction free, right? Like we think social media is a distraction. We're addicted to our phones. But like what you don't realize is when you clutter your brain with, like, you can clutter your brain with what many things, including like the Quran, for example, right? But if you clutter your brain with music, and it's like taking up a large percentage of like your day, of your time, of your thoughts, like you said, you start to lose the appreciation. You start to lose your cognizance in situations. Like now, when I go in nature, for example, I used to go in nature for runs and walks. Did that a ton, right? Like big walk, like running guy. So like, it's like I never said Alhamdulillah while running. I never said Subhanallah when I saw the sunset, ever, not once. But once I quit music and I started doing that, I noticed things. Like I would notice like a butterfly, versus when I was like running with music in, never noticed a butterfly. Like I would never notice these small things around me because I was too absorbed in the music itself, right? The music was what I was concentrating on. And that's just way too big of a distraction. Like it takes away from
Yeah.
you realize. And people think it's okay when, like, when you're driving, for example, right? But it just takes away so much. And you don't really know what you've lost until you actually quit it and like give it some time. And then you realize
Mm-hmm.
like this music, when I was running, when I was driving, when I was just like with my friends, like I don't even remember anything around me. Like I don't know what was happening. I didn't appreciate God's creations. I didn't understand what I was actually missing out on. The music might have seemed like it was taking like everything to the next level and making it feel better, but you're not really left with anything after you're done with it. So the
Yeah,
distraction.
I feel like it kind of clutters your brain, and you're kind of left with wasteful space to some degree because um oh, I just had a really good point, but I just lost it from my head. I don't even know how that happened. But what was I gonna say? That's so annoying. Anyways, I'll just kind of lead on to the point of to where how we're as Muslims we're supposed to constantly try to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even if it is music that doesn't have like explicit things and it's just like instruments or whatever it is, um it still doesn't call on to anything. Like for example, also the music that usually comes out in our generation that people listen to, a lot of it is very repetitive. It's talking about the same things like 1,000 different times in different like fonts. It's like everyone talking about the same things. So
Love, hate, like
yeah, you don't. That's the thing. You don't really learn. Yeah, you don't really learn anything from listening to these songs. I'm not saying that everything that we have to do, we have to learn from it, but I'm saying like you're not really net positive, like getting anything net positive out of it, except emotional wise. And I feel like it's not even a good way to try to cope with your emotions. It's not really a healthy way because you're just distracting yourself and delaying something that you should be more confident and secure in. But for example, if you start listening to the Quran or try listening or understanding the Quran, even if it's like a few verses, with the Quran you have such a higher chance of being able to learn something and apply it to your life. Even like the stories in the Quran of the prophets or what they went through, and whether it's dealing with family or with loved ones or with hardships or everything like that. If you, for example, are going through a hardship and you read the story about Prophet Yusuf and what everything that he went through, you can kind of relate of someone that went through a difficulty, and kind of see how like, oh, difficulties do happen in life even to the best of people in the world, rather than whenever you're feeling bad going to listening to some person that's probably not doing something great and then kind of just falling into something that they're talking about that isn't really beneficial or helping you feel as though the emotions you're experiencing are like a good thing. Because like how you said, a lot of these music or like a lot of these songs talk about how like, why did this happen, or this was like something out of my control that shouldn't have happened or something like that. But we should reflect kind of differently on it sometimes.
Yeah, no. And to touch on the point, like my dhikr and like recitation, like so like that's the other benefit that came from it was like you're saying that you know you end up replacing, if you replace that stuff with the proper stuff, which is like Quran, dhikr, like those are what you should be replacing it with ideally, right? If that's like the best case situation. And if you manage to replace it with that, like the benefits start arising from that alone, right? Like you're more grateful all of a sudden. Like everyone talks about like you should be nice, you should be grateful, you should be this, you should be that. But like how do you even like get to that point? Like this is one of those ways that can benefit and aid you in that, is if you understand like you know you're driving, you know, you're saying subhanallah, 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 alhamdulillah, you're saying all that, you know, 33 times, whatever cadence, like whatever hadith you want to, like, you know, like the number of times you say, there's multiple hadith that have different number of times you say it, right? All that dhikr compounds. You understand what you're saying, right? Glory be to God, praise be to Allah. Like all these things end up affecting your like consciousness. And then the second thing was, that's the other benefit is I know a lot of people who are like, I don't know how to read the Quran properly, like they know the basic, like maybe the tajweed properly too, right? And I was like this also, like I knew the tajweed, but my voice sucked. Like I was like, it sounded like I was like blowing through a trombone or something, like in like marching band in high school. And like I hated the way my voice sounds. Like I knew it didn't sound like great, right? And people are like, oh, like, and within like 4 months, right, I was able to completely transform my voice without a teacher, without anything, like just from YouTube and like practicing. And people were like, how'd you manage to do that? Like how much did you practice every single day? And I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you, like not that much. Like consciously like practice, like sit down and practice like 30 minutes a day, during the summer maybe an hour a day kind of thing. But the thing is, because I wasn't listening to music, whenever I was driving, whenever I was walking, whenever I was alone in my house, in my room, I would be like reciting just like from memory, right, from the surahs that I memorized. And because of that, like you end up doing like 6 hours of practice a day, because like now all your empty space is filled with the Quran, right? And now your recitation has improved as well. You're more confident leading salah, right? And it's like how much effort did you actually put into that? So like a lot of people end up replacing that mindlessness, like during when they remove music, you have to think about something, right? Usually people end up thinking about something, and you're not always going to be thinking about the things of life. Sometimes you just want to think, like you want to do something with your mind when your mind's not actually doing anything. So rather than put that with music, they end up associating that with like the Quran, and all of a sudden like the benefits of the Quran start emerging within this world, let alone what's going to happen in the akhirah, right? Like it could very well save you. Think like if you're the worst sinner, worst guy out there, but you end up like you don't listen to music and you're reciting like 4 hours a day, doing dhikr like 4 hours a day, and that's possible. Like when you cut out music, like you realize how much empty space you actually have to do that, and if you get into the habit of that, it's like, I don't want to say magical because there is like no magic to this, but like it's kind of crazy. Like I think about it sometimes, I'm like, man, I have to like get back on my like A game with like dhikr and like Quran. I'm like, but give myself some credit. Like I just did 4 hours this today and I didn't even know. So that was I think the other benefit that came out of it too.
I think something that was also like an implicit benefit, or something that I didn't directly try to do, is when I cut out music, I kind of just automatically started listening, because like I'd say like when I did stop listening to music, I was really bad at reading the Quran. Like I was very slow, like my tajweed was non-existent. It was very, very hard for me. Like it would take me like an hour to read like a page. Like I was that bad. But alhamdulillah, whenever I did cut out music, something that was implicit was I felt like I just listened to Quran more frequently, just because at first whenever like I cut out music, I like deleted the Apple Music app, and I was like, I can't have any like I deleted the subscription, deleted the app, and I was like, I can't have any like temptation, like open the app or something. So then I was like, whenever I'd go somewhere, I'd be like, well, I was so like addicted or used to listening to something, and I'd be like, well, what am I gonna listen to now? I'll just listen to the Quran. And I felt like that was something, it wasn't like an initial intention, but I started listening to the Quran more, and I feel like that's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you get rid of something wrong for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He replaces it with something better. And so I started listening to Quran more frequently, which also helped me in reading the Quran, because I kind of got more of a idea of like the words in the Quran and the flow, and I started practicing more. Because also I think another thing is I got more khushu' in my salah. Like I felt more concentrated in my salah, because like how addicting songs are, you're always like repeating them, like the lyrics in your head or out loud or something like that. Because like I know like everyone knows the saying of like, oh, this song is stuck in my head right now. We've all probably experienced that. That's just because the addictive nature of songs. But once you get that out of your head, I feel like you have much more concentration in your prayer and outside your prayer. Even in like studying, for example, you're not like constantly circuit breaking on a song repeatedly while you're studying. And it kind of gives you more freedom in your thought. It doesn't kind of guide you in the way that you think, and again in your emotions. I'm going to repeat on that, because that was the biggest thing for me. As soon as I quit music, is I felt like I was more of a calmer person as well, because at least the music, not all of my music that I listened to was like XXX Tentacion like screaming in the microphone, singing like that. It wasn't like that. But I feel like I was a more calm person. It's not like I became like dull or something like that. I just felt like I was more calm in my emotions, and I was more of me rather than like the music I listened to that day. It's like you're just like, not like some people wake up and like, today I'm listening to sad music, I feel like I want to be sad, or like today I'm listening to this type of music because I want to be like energetic. You kind of have a baseline, and the things that you experience in your life guide your emotions rather than what you're going to listen to that day.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, like it's not always like hardcore or like rap music, right? Like even like violin and instrumentals, right? I used to listen to plenty of instrumentals, like especially when studying, like the whole like Ludovico Einaudi,
Classical
like
music,
that classical guy, like how that like I like that music, and like I used to listen to it like a ton, but even that music, it affects you like to the deepest levels like I can ever explain. How like when I quit, like just like you said, when I quit that even that kind of music, when I quit it, like it's almost like you appreciate the silence and you appreciate what you've been given, versus trying to like implement something that to enhance the experience. Like back to that was like, you know, do you really need that while studying to like aid you in studying? Like think about how like, no offense to anyone, but like how weak-minded you would have to be for that to induce you to cause you to study. And I'm saying that from my perspective. Like I was in that exact same position. Like I didn't want to study, so to put myself in the mood to like benefit me and like into the rhythm of studying, right, I put music on. And I'm like, wait, so I couldn't develop the mentality to like sit down and study without music. I couldn't develop the mentality to wake up and go to the gym without some kind of like motivating music playing behind, right? Like it was almost like a crutch, and you end up using that crutch for like everything. When you're emotionally hurt, back to music. When you want to go to the gym, back to music. When you want to, you know, like study, back to music. Like when are you not listening to music? And I know people who listen like 10 hours a day or like 12 hours a day, and they're only awake for like 9 hours a day. So they end up listening to it while they're sleeping. And I'm like, you actually told me the story about that once. But the point is, the point is,
I feel like you become. Go ahead.
No, it's just that you listen to so much, and you don't even realize what you lost. Like you lost something. Like it's not just benefit, right? Like there is something lost, especially when we know it's a commandment. That means there's something for sure lost when you listen to that much music. So like, it blows my mind sometimes, and I'm grateful that I'm not there anymore.
For sure. I think you also become so much more comfortable with your own thoughts. I remember, I don't know if this was out in high school, I was like still just start, like, I don't know, like high peak of hormones still in your head, but like I felt like I was always like, cause I don't know, I was like kind of a sad kid in high school, and like I don't know, I'd have a lot of sad stuff, whatever. Don't want to get too deep into that, but I felt like after I quit music, I became more kind of comfortable with my thoughts, my headspace, my thought space. Like again, when I'd study, I'd listen to classical music all the time too. I felt like it keep me calm or keep me focused. But now that I stopped listening to music, alhamdulillah, I felt like that quietness allows you to focus much more efficiently than you would with classical music. Once you achieve that state of where you're more calm on a baseline emotional level, I feel like the amount of focus and amount of things that you can achieve in your time become so much better. And I think that's just a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, because you're following something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do. But again, you start thinking more efficiently, you start acting more efficiently, less emotionally, more logically. Especially with my studying, like I felt like in school too, like I wouldn't be as distracted. Like I know like for me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start studying after this song ends or something like that. I do that sometimes, which is like, and then the next one comes up, and you're like, I like the next one or something like that. Or like, you know, like whenever you're studying, you have like music playing, and then like you're not that focused because you have music in the background. So that again, that comes out to like when you fully cut it out, even outside of studying, even like when you're just walking to class where you don't have that constant distraction in your head, and you have that free space to think. You can look around, like how you said, and notice things that you wouldn't notice before, and kind of appreciate the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to like look at nature and reflect on it, and through that be able to appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yeah, I think that was a very, very, very big thing for me, was the mental space and the thought space that changed for me as soon as I cut out music.
Yeah, and people are like, I can do both. I can listen to music and appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I'm like, first of all, if you're that one guy who might be able to do that, to what degree, right? Like you lose half your life on that. And like I saw a thing the other day. I was like, you know, we spend on average like 6 hours on our phone a day, right? And that's like active use on our phone. After the course of 60 years, right, that amounts to like almost close to like between 10 to 15 years of your life on your phone. So you lost 10 to 15 of your years on your life on your phone by the time you're age of 60, 70, right? And so like if you think about music, which is more than screen time, how much time did you lose not appreciating what was actually around you, right? Like, do you even remember the sounds of nature? Do you remember like what was going on? You miss out on so much. So yeah, so rather than run around in circles and like talk about some of those pros, there's so many other pros. Like everyone's gonna have their own, but that was definitely like some of. And last thing was the salah. I just want to touch on that. Like you said, the khushu in salah, and I'm like, one is for sure like my khushu increased, but also like people zone out sometimes during salah, and that's what you want to increase. That's what khushu is, right? Is like your concentration, your ability to stay in mind present in the moment. And not only did that increase, but now when I did get distracted, I would be able to get back a lot faster. Like there was less like noise in my head. And then secondly, when I got distracted, it was never distracted by something that was such a major pull that I was like shaky, right? And by being more like present in Salah as well, like I realized I started praying longer. And what I mean by longer is like I would actually enjoy reciting surahs that were longer. I would take more time in my sajda, right? Rather than be like Subhana Rabbil Ala, Subhana Rabbil Ala, Subhana Rabbil Ala, like really quick like that, I'd be like Subhana Rabbil Ala, Subhana Rabbil Ala, right? I would take my time with it. And I realized because I didn't feel like a constant, like music is fast, music is this, music is that, right? Music is like, it's not like, most music that we listen to is not slow. So like all of a sudden, when I got rid of it, it was like all of a sudden I enjoyed I slowed down, right? I enjoyed being like taking my time with it. I started praying all my sunnahs, right? So it's like, if you give up music and in return, you're getting your fard prayer, your sunnah prayer, and your witr prayer in like complete, lengthy, deep moments. Like that is your reprieve. That is your like break in the day. That makes you like truly like feel like yourself. Is that not worth it to like give that up, right? And I think that was the biggest factor for my salah. Like it wasn't even other stuff. Like from all the stuff that I was like able to change and quit about myself from the past of who I was, music by far was the thing that impacted my salah the most. So I just wanted to add that in there too.
Yeah. Also, this is like kind of a more of like a nerdy point, but if you are in a more of an emotional state on a daily basis throughout the day, your cortisol levels or your stress hormone levels are going to be significantly higher, which is not something that you ideally want for yourself. So if you are more calm and more aware of your emotions and not always super emotional or swinging emotions due to music, your stress levels are going to be lower, your stress hormones are going to be lower, you'll be more free, more relaxed, not as built up, and which has a lot of health benefits just outside of concentration and everything that we've talked about as well.
Yeah, I mean there's more science to it too, but like on a brief level, basically like in my opinion, science just hasn't caught up yet, and it's going to catch up pretty soon because we're getting there. But like music has been shown to increase your baseline of like neural activity, right? So if you're like increasing your baseline of neural activity to like, let's say just for like example, you start at 0, you go to 5, and let's say 5 is what music puts you at, 0 is what your natural state is at, just for example, and you're at 5 all the time, just logically thinking about it without talking about too much of the science of it, what ends up happening is like you raise your baseline, and when your baseline is raised, all of a sudden you need something more to drive it over the edge, right? Which is why like people switch up their music taste style because they get too used to one type of music, right? That's like actually the science behind why people like gravitate to different types of songs, different types of artists, right? We might have that one favorite song, etc., but like the reason we do that as human beings is because our mind needs something refreshing, like new, refreshing and new. But that doesn't happen with the Quran. I've seen guys who started in their early 20s, early 15s, they still read the same Quran after being a hafiz like at the age of 70. And that blows my mind too. Is like there's some kind of miracle in there that allows us to read it over and over and over and over again and never get tired of it whatsoever.
Also, it's like 604 pages with so many countless stories in the Quran to where like if you get bored of all those stories, I don't think it's possible. If you truly understand them and appreciate the historical context of, like, if you really want to get really deep into it, you can look into the historical context, when it was revealed, why it was revealed, what the whole story is about, everything like that. Like, there's so much you can learn and explore in the Quran. It's literally endless.
Yeah, even Surah Fatiha, like, I have been reciting Surah Fatiha. I have not, okay, obviously 5 daily prayers you recite Surah Fatiha, but I recited like at least like 10 times. It's been almost like 8 months, 9 months where I recited it away from Salah every single day, like at least 5-6 times on my own mental cord. Not a single day did I say this was stuck in my head. Like, but if you did that with a song, think about that. Imagine if you had a song stuck in your head for 8 months straight, right? Every single day, you would say something, right? But I didn't.
Yeah, you're like, this song.
And that shocked me. Like, I just kind of realized that too. Is like, I've never once said this is stuck in my head, gotten tired of it. Every time I like say it, recite it, or I hear it, I'm like, wow, this sounds even more beautiful than when I last heard it, right? And that's like, that's also something like beneficial that I have come out of that. Okay, so let's talk about how we quit it now, because I think that's important. Okay. And we wanted to address that during this episode, so you can start with that.
All right. Yeah, I think the first thing. So for me, it was at first kind of more of a gradual thing. So I used to listen to music it's all the time. And then the first thing I tried to cut it out to was the only time I'd ever listen to music was at the gym, because I was so dependent on that. I literally could not do any physical activities without some sort of music. So I cut it out of everything except the gym, because I think I also just started to feel bad about listening to music outside the gym, because I'll be like, this is so stupid. Well, I just need to listen to something else or the Quran or something. And then so I started listening to only in the gym, and then eventually in the gym I'd be like, okay, I'm going to listen to it only before like a big lift or something like that. And then eventually one day I was just like, I'm literally just like prolonging something that I should just do, and I just need to quit it. And before I even started cutting it off, I kind of try to logically understand or understand my thoughts and why music is, to me, in my opinion, something that we shouldn't do. Like, obviously we know why we shouldn't do it, but like I try to think of, okay, if I quit this, why would I want to do it? Of course, you want to do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a commandment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. But I was saying, okay, if I do this, I need to start replacing it with more Quran or nasheeds or etc. So eventually one day for me, it was kind of a little drastic, but alhamdulillah, it worked out. I just decided, literally, I was like, I'm canceling my Apple Music subscription. I deleted the Apple Music app. I deleted Spotify. I deleted every type of music platform that I could have, and then kind of just try to deal with it. I at the time I was trying to become more focused on everything in my life as well too. So I personally deleted social media as well during that time. I deleted all my social medias and everything, and I think that helped me too, because social media, there's music everywhere on it. Literally, like practically every clip that you see, except if it's like an Islamic video, there's music on it. So I think that's something that helped me as well. Mine was a little drastic, but I think me cutting out everything and not allowing myself to have any type of temptations, or by keeping the app or something like that. And I think there's the people I was around as well too, like the people I was hanging out with don't really listen to music, especially in a group setting, with each other. So that was something that's the way that kind of worked for me. And also, I want to bring up a point about music. If music is something that you are indulging in, or something that's like a big part of your life, I think the biggest thing that you should work on, number one, is transitioning between listening to music. If you're not going to go for the drastic cut change, is transitioning from listening to music with other people to only by yourself, because you don't want your sins exposed out to the public. You don't want like something that you're doing currently, or something that you're currently indulging in that's haram, to be known to other people. Because we all know, I don't know if we all know, but there's the hadith that we shouldn't expose our sins, and then there's like a punishment for that. So that's a number one thing that we should all focus on in terms of music, is not doing it in something that's public with other people, because we shouldn't be exposing sins and making it something that seems like it's normal, or indulging in something that's haram together. So yeah, try to transition to your own, and only do it by your own, so it's kind of a hidden sin, and then deal with it however you see it best and however is most effective to you, whether that's setting like a lot, like downloading an app that locks every single type of app that you can have music on. Like I remember I have this one app that's like app blocker or something like that on my phone, where it restricts me from even like opening or deleting the app or anything like that. And it's just it takes, I don't know the science behind it, I forgot the exact amount of days, but I think it's like 3 weeks and you fully get rid of any habit or addiction that you have. So it's just getting over that initial hump will get any type of like physical want for music out, and then the rest of it is conscious. But if honestly, for me, if you replace the music with the Quran, and you truly try to understand more than just listen as well, you start appreciating the Quran so much that you don't really want to go back to music, because you feel bad, you feel like you're doing something very wrong, because you start to appreciate the Quran and then understand the blessing of being able to have a stronger connection with the Quran. So yeah, that's my take on it personally.
Yeah, no, I mean, your take is, the back end of it was very, very similar to mine. The method at which I went for it was kind of different, but like the ideology for like the sinning in public and sinning in person is kind of similar. So for me, what kind of like called me into action was I started. First of all, I got older, so like now I'm in college. I was in my. When did I do that? I cut it off in my second year of college, and so I started thinking about the future a little bit, and I was like, you know what? Like, of course, don't clown me on this one, but I started thinking like, oh, I'm actually gonna get married one day, right? Like, there's gonna be another person in my life. There's gonna be like kids in my life, right? So I have a responsibility onto my kids and this person who I'm marrying, right? So I started thinking about concepts like that, and when you tie that to music, you realize it's twofold. It's one is myself, and one is my family, right? So let's say like your wife and your kids don't know any better. Okay, so your kids are innocent, right? At least when they're like young, right? It's like when they're 4 or 5, like nothing. They don't know any better. They don't know what they're ingesting. And I'm thinking, if I'm listening to music and I play music in my car, and my kids are hearing it, they might not get bad deeds at that moment because it was unintentional. They had no control over it for listening to that music. But if that creates them into the habit of listening to music later on, I am the reason why my kids are sinning. Right, like if that is the reason why they're so used to music, like and like at the age of like 17 they're just listening to music, like I'm the reason why they were doing that. And so that's when that's one thing. And the second thing is like even your wife, right? Like she might be okay with music, she doesn't really think twofold about it. But if you are the, like, for example, for the guys, like if you decide like this is something that's okay, and if your wife agrees to it because it's something like that you agree upon as a compromise, now you're responsible for her sins as well, right? Because she's a cognizant human being who's like existing, and hopefully you two push each other in the better direction, but like you're responsible for that too. So that's the side of like drawing the people who are closest to you down to the depths of hell. Like I don't want to scare anyone, but you're basically edging them closer to the edge of hell if you decided to think that. And that's what I scared myself with. I was like, do you really want to do that to the people you love the most? Like, is this something that you really want to do? And that kind of like fear shocked me into like, go change yourself because they deserve better. And then the second part was myself, right? So like in a marriage, you want to be the best version of yourself you can possibly be. Like you want to be like smart, you want to be like well thought out, you want to be kind, you want to be generous, you want to be a good role model, whether you're a mom or your dad, right? For your kids, for your wife, for your husband, etc. And so like if you listen to all these like this type of music, does that promote being a good and proper husband or wife? It doesn't. Most of the music nowadays doesn't. And let's say in a rare case there is music that promotes that. Are you really trying to emulate what a song is saying in your life, right? So if songs dominate the majority of your life, are you really trying to emulate, like let's say like you listen to 7 hours of music a day, and if you were exactly like the music that you listen to, would you be satisfied? And I looked at myself and I said no. So those are the 2 points of major concern that I realized was like, that's what started the entire thing. But the way I went about it was more like a taper style. So the first thing I did was I like with music, I was like, on and off for a couple days. And then I started listening to a lot more nasheeds, understanding what nasheeds were saying. And then the first thing I did was replace nasheeds in the gym, because I realized like the gym is a call to like getting fit, a call to like, being active. So nasheeds promote that lifestyle. So why is that not a better replacement for the gym? And once I did that, I think I got addicted to nasheeds for a little bit. So I went from songs to nasheeds, and I listened to nasheeds like nonstop, 24/7. But that's when I started practicing the Quran more as well. And when I started practicing the Quran more, I realized how much more deep that was in nasheeds. And so like then nasheeds were also like non-musical nasheeds, by the way. So like non-musical nasheeds, I was on that until like about even like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And that's when the nasheeds naturally died off too, is because like I just tapered off of them. I'm like, I'd rather listen to the Quran in the car right now. Like I'd rather listen to like the words of God than to the words of another man. Like if you think about it, like that's what it is like you're listening to the words of God versus another man. And even if you don't understand them, like I don't understand Arabic like through and through. If I don't know the story beforehand, I won't know what the words are saying. But even if you don't understand it, there is barakah in it. So like I enjoyed like feeling like I'm being taken care of. I enjoyed feeling like there's a protective shield around me. Like when I'm driving, is that not the best shield that could be offered to me? If I was to die passing away like when I was driving, is that not how I would want to go out? What else could I have? Like in this entire world, even if I was a rich multimillionaire and I died, would that be better than where I'm at right now? Probably not. But if I'm playing the Quran right now, I'm playing the Quran, then it doesn't matter when I die, as a multimillionaire or as a college student who's like worried about finances, right? Like you're dying with the Quran playing behind you. So then I got addicted to the Quran, and I think the Quran is the only thing you should probably be addicted to, but in a balance. But the beautiful thing is it automatically balances itself out. It doesn't let you like overrule your life, which is something I noticed recently as well, which is like it just doesn't take up as much like mental space as you think music does. So that was my entire process of like how to go about it. But everyone's gonna kind of have to like find their own process, because there's not really like one set way to like quit something. Um, Everyone kind of has like nuances, and nuances is very important. But the biggest thing I would suggest is like talk to someone who either has done it as like an accountability partner, or immerse yourself in groups that don't do it. Because that was the other factor, was I was in an MSU that, you know, it wasn't very popular. Like it's not being played everywhere, right? And then the other bigger factor is like find your reasons, because there are reasons out there, and like for some of us those are other people, and that was for me. Like the other people were my reasons, even though they don't exist yet. But for other people it might be people who currently exist in their life, like their family members or siblings, etc. So like you have to like account for like, you have to really reflect, right? It doesn't stop at just like, oh, I want to stop music. You have to really think about why you're trying to do it and how you're going to get to doing it. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think at the end of the day, the thing you should keep in mind the most is, inshallah, the reward and the benefits you'll reap out of it. Even for us, these were our benefits, but again, if you take something out of your life purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace it with something better, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best and knows what's best for you. So your benefits might be significantly better than ours. It's just depending on who you are and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with. So yeah, just again, everyone has their own way of getting over something. This was just our personal ways. Try to see what you want. For me personally, in my life, cutting out stuff that was haram or not good, I did it very drastically, which to some people might work, to some people might not. But to me, that's how a person. And then for Talha, just kind of tapered off over time. But the thing that kept me the most motivated is, inshallah, we'll all be rewarded for this at the end of the day, especially for our efforts and our intentions and how much energy we put into it, inshallah.
and that's the other thing. I like your method about the drastic thing, because I've done that with a couple things. But just you know, sometimes that's needed. Sometimes you need to do that like crazy change. Like if it's like, if you know and you've kind of reflected and you know, like, you know, cussing is haram, you know that drinking is haram, you know vaping is haram, you know that music is haram. At one point, if you've really reflected and gone through everything, sometimes the best method is to be like, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm doing it. That's it. Like done. And I think I the best example I've seen of this is like people who I've seen who were not hijabi and then they became hijabi. Like when I'm talking like as hijab, I mean like khimar, like the scarf, not like the male hijab, which is like ankle, not ankle, sorry, navel to the knees, right? So like I've seen some sisters who are like deathly scared, and yet they're like, you know what, that's it, I'm pulling the gun, and they go and do a drastic thing, and they're just like, now's the day, and that's it. So they don't like, sometimes you don't need to understand the full scope of like, oh, like I don't know what's gonna happen when I quit music, I don't know what like the withdrawals of what I'm gonna happen, right? It's just like, okay, today's the day, now's the day, done. Tell the people around you I'm done listening to music, keep me on track, and then go through the withdrawals. Like it might be drastic, it might hurt for a little bit, but it's in the sake of Allah, and it's only gonna pan out in the future, right? Not saying do it unhealthy. For example, if you're like an actual like drug addict, don't go cold turkey. Like you might go through like crazy withdrawals to the point where like you'll be hospitalized. But with those like special things, like talk to people who know that field, and then understand how to like taper off of it like properly. But yeah, like with music too, talk to the people who like have quit music. Talk to the sheikhs. Talk to people around you in your community who are willing to help you on that journey. Like don't do it alone, for sure.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, another thing is just trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing something, trusting that He'll replace it with something better and give you benefits for it. And then, of course, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua to keep you firm on the straight path and to give you assistance and guidance in getting rid of something that is bad in your life. Because as much as you want to do something, at the end of the day, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you taking the initiative and the intention means so much to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So make dua as well to keep you firm on whatever thing you're trying to get rid of in your life, either if it's music or anything else in Islam that's forbidden. And again, I know some I've listened to this before. It's like, even if you personally can't get in your head or understand why something is haram or why something isn't allowed, just trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He knows best. Our sciences, if you want to go on science, is nowhere near as advanced. But even salah, how it's prescribed to us, we now know like the benefits of it due to the research into salah and how it affects your brain and how it affects your emotions and your baseline focus and activity and everything. So many things that you can get into. And when salah was prescribed to the Muslim people back in Rasulullah's time, they didn't know any of like the neurological things to do it. They were told to do it, and they did it. It was something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them to do, so they did it. And then, of course, they reaped the benefits of it, and inshallah, we can do the same, regardless of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do. We all know that it's haqq, and that it's true, and that we should follow it. And regardless if we know the benefits, or regardless of how we know it's going to affect us, we know that it's the best thing.
Yep. Nice. that was a good way to conclude it. But yeah, music is a very touchy subject. A lot of people disagree on it. I've seen lots of Muslims disagree on it. But if you are one of the people who are like, this is haram, this is not something I should be doing, and you want to take proper steps for that, never a better time to begin. And as it becomes a bigger and bigger part of our world, like, it's just something that should be taken care of as early as possible. And it's easier to do that without, like, every day that you wait is going to be harder to do it later on. Like, I think of this with like all these other things that people are trying to change. Like, the longer you wait, the harder it is to do, and there is no guarantee that you will live that long to even be able to change it. So push yourself. Like, it's not like, yeah, we're very focused on growth and like, becoming the best person you can be with time, but push yourself a little bit. Like, this is something that you can do, and you shouldn't be giving up on it just because you're like, I'm too addicted, it's too hard, like, I enjoy it too much. Everything in this life is temporary. Everything. Like beauty, wealth, energy, like emotions, it's all temporary. So work on it, become the person who you know you can be, and don't give up on that.
Yeah, this shouldn't be something that we push off, regardless of anything in Islam. If you know you're doing something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is to all of the Muslimin, not just to the viewers, us as well. If we know that we're doing something that is haram or not allowed, we should try to cut it out like ASAP, like right now, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We're not even guaranteed the next hour. I know this is a scary thought, but that's how us as Muslims are told to think. We're told not to expect to live the next day or be here tomorrow. So having the intention of just wanting to change means so much to the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to all have that intention, inshallah, to better ourselves and get ourselves away from stuff that are not allowed and haram in Islam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all and put us on the right path and allow us to become better Muslims, inshallah.
Ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Okay. With that was today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. So, but I always enjoy these episodes. I promised you I don't watch them back afterwards. So just in the car. One time, I sat in my car. It was playing. My entire family sat in the car, and they're like, "Do you listen to your own episode?" Because it was playing in the background. I'm like, "No, I was just fact checking something. Like, relax." So, yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next episode.